Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan with Business Owner Browser, Tech Tuesdays. And we're very happy to be joined this week by John. John, you want to say hi, introduce yourself real fast?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's great to be here. This is John Genovese. I'm a global client partner at Amazon Web Services. Been friends with Dennis for quite some time, right? I think back in the days of the old tech pitch contests, right? Going back, dating ourselves now in the New Jersey community here, but it's been a long time, and I've enjoyed watching, Dennis's career kind of flourish and all the different cool ideas that have taken place since our startups that we had back in the day. So great to be here.
He's always moving. That's I share in that respect for Dennis. So I know we'll get started kind of real basic here. I'm sure there's about only 6 people in the world that haven't heard of AWS. But for those who maybe haven't, do you mind just explaining roughly what AWS is and maybe a little bit more about your role as part of the company?
Yeah, look, I think AWS, Amazon Web Services, is one of the large cloud providers, right? So, in a lot of ways, if you go access a website today, there's a good chance that that website is running on, AWS infrastructure. Even to not just infrastructure, but as we look into the future of AI, ML, and artificial intelligence, machine learning, AWS is playing a significant role there, among many, many other offerings, right? Everything from analytics to databases to storage to networking, you name it, right? I mean, it helps make the world go around in a lot of ways. In my role, as a global client partner, I think it's cool because I get to work with some of the smartest people, in the world here, work with some of the largest companies in the world. And really determine where AWS has 200 plus different technology services and technology offerings, which is even hard to wrap your mind around. But part of my job is working backwards from what the customer, and by customer I mean some of the largest, like I said, enterprises in the world, and really understanding what they're trying to go solve, what's going to be the future of their business, and then working backwards from that and helping them line up to what we can help them with and what we can offer. Like we mentioned earlier, I started my career in the management consulting space and then transitioned into technology, business development, sales, and I did that because the industry was always changing and always very exciting. I think, but the thing that changed, although it changes a lot, the thing that remains consistent is just the customer, right? Like the customer value prop and how you help drive value for the customer. Those are some evergreen things, right? That are always going to stay consistent. So I think that's what's really attracted me to the space that I'm in now.
Yeah. I mean, as both, I've used AWS as both a startup entrepreneur. I think I credit AWS to giving a lot of startups the ability to even exist. I mean, they have like the free tiers and it's easy to set up. And then I've also been on the enterprise side, kind of working with people like yourself and using it for big clients. So what's some of the most recent trends that you've seen in AWS? And I want to get more into the metaverse with you. So if there's any trends with AWS in the metaverse, by all means go into that. But kind of, with the most recent, working from home and people kind of changing their lifestyle, have you seen any big trends emerge this year?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we don't have too much time on this call, but I think, one of the things I would say to anyone listening is that if they are interested in AWS and learning more about AWS and what's going on there, we just got done with our customer conference called reInvent that took place in Vegas 2 weeks ago. So, right now you could go to YouTube, you could go on, Google, you go to obviously the AWS website and look up the different keynotes and look up some of the big announcements, and all the trends really there will be, packaged up pretty nicely, right? I think, for me to go into that now would probably not be doing it justice. But I think, there's a tremendous amount of content and new offerings that are coming out from AWS. So you can check that out there. I think from my perspective, when I, go to these conferences and when I just work with customers in general, I'm always trying to look at it through what's a customer value lens, right? And one of the ones I found that works extremely well is around, the objectives and key results methodology, right? Like OKRs. I know that it's not a new thing, for people who, read John Doerr and who understand, that method. It's been around for a while, but I think it's really been pervasive in how we've managed customer relationships, right? So if a customer comes to us with a problem, part of our kind of standard, go to market with them is to say, look, how does this fit into your OKRs, right? Like if you want to go solve this problem, how does it fit in? And if they don't know that, if they don't understand that, I think there's a part of, consulting and consultation that goes along with that to help them understand how AWS and all the 200 plus services can ultimately go drive that. So OKRs is a big portion of what we do, day in, day out.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little more. So you'll actually go on site, you'll meet with some clients, and you'll kind of help them come up with their objectives, and then you'll, I guess, formulate some of the key results you would track off of that, or how do you kind of put that all together with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I look at it in, from a personal perspective, I look at OKRs in, 3 lenses, right? And, for me, it's one, how can you work with the customer on their OKRs, right? And we'll talk about that. I think secondly, it's, I manage a global team. So, what are the OKRs for our global team, right? And then third, any of the passion projects that we have going on, right? That we talked about the metaverse a little bit.
Yeah.
How does OKRs even apply to that, right? And everything else you do, teaching my 7-year-old about like, hey, what are your OKRs for, for school, right? So just so you start planting those seeds early, which is really cool. But look, I think to your point, a lot of customers, well, I say a lot, I think, I've worked with a decent amount of customers that will have an initiative or will have an objective that is sometimes not clearly defined, right? So I think really peeling that onion back of like, what are you really trying to accomplish? And then let's put that into an objective statement with them if they don't already have it. And then say to them, okay, if we're going to partner together, what are the key results that would effectively, if those key results are accomplished, right, they're time bound and they're measurable, then would that help us understand if we achieved your objective? And then building that out with them, I think, is something that not a lot of companies do, not a lot of account teams do, not a lot of sales and business development teams do. But it's something that I think we found that works really, really well, and we think we've earned a lot of trust with the customer by taking that approach.
I like that, and you'll have to forgive me because it's been a number of years since I read the book. But I remember that one of the hardest thing is actually setting the right objective, right, and making sure that you set something obtainable. And I don't know if you're measuring it off of a quarter or a calendar year, but to me, it seems like you provide a ton of value in helping these customers come up with actually what the right objective should be, not just, an arbitrary objective that may not help their bottom line or help customer satisfaction.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. So how do you kind of go through that process with them? Learn their business, have some discoveries? Do you do a little bit of trial and error?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of that I call strategic alignment that has to happen, right? In the sense where we're going to have these calls, and it's not necessarily like we're selling or pitching anything, right? It's really all about understanding what's the strategy, what's the focus areas that the customer has, and then if they don't have it written up as an objective and a key result, then us taking the proactiveness to go ahead and put that into an OKR and then validate that with the customer, right? Yeah. And I think there's been a lot of attention that's come about that because they really appreciate that approach, because not everyone's doing that, right? People aren't taking what the customer's telling you and then putting that into a different lens and then repeating that back to them to make sure that, one, you understand it, and that two, maybe the customer now understands it in a different way, right? And maybe they adopt it, right? Maybe they adopt it and they bring it internally, which we've seen happen as well. But even from an account team perspective, right? I mean, I think one of the things that's amazing about AWS is that they invest so much into the success of our customers, probably more so than I've ever seen. And, for us, when I said, hey, what's our key objective, right? As an account team, as a sales team, and business development team, what is our objective here? And, I always go back to it, and I tried getting away from it, then I come back to it. It's like, we want to be the #1 technology and business partner for our customer. And it's a little ambiguous. But when you start to define that, right, using the key results, one of those key results might be like, look, we want to be on stage at the customer's, internal event that they have that is honoring, partners, right? Like we want to be a partner on that stage getting an award because we've given so much value to the customer. And that makes it a little more tangible, right? And you have a couple other ones like that. And then if you achieve all those, we've then achieved our objective of being the #1, business and technology partner for our customer, right? And we drive that because what's cool about it, if you think about it, we all have 1,000 things going on all the time, right? It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter if you're, an hourly employee. There's, whether it be personal or professional, there's always so much going on. And when you think about how do you get back to center, how do you focus on your mission, how do you, think about what's going to make the next big step, right? There's a book called The One Thing. You might have heard about that or read that. Like, I think in a lot of ways, OKRs and that book's premise of the one thing are really coincided. Like, what's the one thing that if this happens, everything else falls into place?
Yeah.
And I think objectives and key results really help drive that, going forward.
Yeah, they help hone you. So you have personal OKRs, kid OKRs, which is great, customer OKRs. How do you keep track of all this? Do you run a couple different Excel sheets? Is there some awesome technology out there that I don't know about that you can plug all this data into? How do you keep it all straight and measure it and remember to measure it?
Yeah, look, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there are some really awesome technology platforms that have been designed and built specifically for tracking OKRs, which is really cool. I messed around with them. I've actually been invited to be on an advisory board for one of them at one point.
Very cool.
But, truthfully, you can also accomplish it in a spreadsheet, right? A Google Sheet works just as well, right? Because you can, feel free to share it with the various folks in your team or your family members or even customers, depending on privacy and whatnot, security protocols. But by doing that, I think that one of the key things about OKRs is that it's very visible and transparent to everybody who it's affecting. So being able to do it in a Google Sheet, I think, has worked really well for us as well.
Yeah, no need to overcomplicate something if it's works perfectly that. And I like what you said about transparency. So you'll share openly all of the OKRs with anyone on your team, I assume, and then you'll also kind of see the OKRs for people on teams above you or more at the higher level, I guess.
Absolutely.
I think that transparency is key. That's good. Yeah. I mean, that way people know where the organization is going and they can really feel a part of it. And so I like that. Yeah. All right, so let's switch gears quickly because I know we have some time constraints here, and this is also something that I'm really interested in is the metaverse, and you're interested in real estate within the metaverse. So super high level, and I know this is going to be a crazy concept for a lot of people out there, but people are buying real estate in a virtual world.
That's right.
Tell us more about that. Like, what's the industry? Where's your head at? Where do you see it going? I even saw that people are designing sneakers for the metaverse.
That's tip
so you can buy sneakers in the metaverse. So
tip of the iceberg. Look, I think that I could talk about this for all day long, right? And I usually get to work on this on nights and weekends, right? After sometimes the kids are asleep and customers are happy, right? That's number one. But nights and weekends when we can do that, I think diving into this space is so exciting to me because it's what's going to be around the next 10, 20, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
To not be so cliche. I mean, I read the book Ready Player One, like the first time it was out, right? And
that's where I keep going. That's
right. And it was just so enthralling to me. And then obviously the movie came out, and then he wrote the second book, which I thought was incredible. I don't know if you read the second Ready Player Two. That was incredible. And just it's almost like the playbook for where this is all going, right? In a lot of ways. And so anyway, super exciting. I think the blockchain has unlocked the ability to make it a reality, right? Before blockchain, I think it was almost a pipe dream. It was kind of this like cool thing that maybe one day happens in the future. Now with blockchain, it's real, right? It can really happen. But look, to your point, I mean, what is it, right? It's effectively going onto these platforms that are things like Decentraland, right? Things like the Sandbox, and there's many others, of varying degrees of popularity. And effectively owning, right? Like think of it as like a certificate of authenticity. Like I'm going to own, this piece of a virtual plot of land. And that gives you certain entitlements. It gives you certain rights. And right now, today, people think, well, if you go to the Decentraland or Sandbox and you look at what you can do with it, you can build games on it, right? You can lease it out, right, to different developers, right? They can build games on it. So that maybe you get paid a little bit of like a tenant fee. But I think for me, what's exciting about all this is, looking now to like the next evolution of this, right? So now you have all these disparate, platforms, if you will, right, of metaverse, right? And I'm talking about things like Roblox, right? Our kids, I don't know about your kids, but my kids play Roblox a lot, right?
Okay. No.
Minecraft, you kind of name it, you go through these different type of platforms that you have an avatar and you're able to explore and interact with this world. Like that's really cool. But what's going to happen when there is going to be some, open source centralized, API that connects all these platforms together, right? So your avatar or those shoes that you bought, right, are somehow able to then be transferred from
Yeah.
Decentraland to Roblox and back again into every other, world, it's going to happen, right? And when that type of interoperability becomes real, I think is when all of this really starts to explode. The other side I think I'll say is that, again, looking to the future, you look at some of these platforms, and now you have platforms that are effectively overlaying the real world. So, you go into New York City, Times Square, there's these platforms that are overlaying with, NFTs, right? You can own an area of the real world in the metaversal space. And think about what's going to happen right now. You think, oh, hey, cool, I own, whatever, a portion of Times Square, right? There's probably not too much that can happen today. But in the future, when everyone has, the contact lenses or, the low profile glasses that are now viewing the world in, with the superimposed kind of AR, and it's seamless, where it's not like you're wearing these Google glasses.
Right.
It's like the size of this and you can't get through a
doorway. You can still walk around. Yeah.
But when you almost can't tell, like I can't tell you're wearing something that's going to superimpose the future into your line of sight. Think about what that does. Now, if you own a piece of, say, Times Square in this metaversal space, you're going to have advertisers coming to you to say, look, this is a really important platform. We want to advertise here. You clearly own it, right? Like we're going to have to pay you now to put our advertisement in AR in this space because you own it. Right. And it's so early that it's almost wonky to even think about, but it's coming.
It's going to be, I'm with you. I'm right there with you. It's going to be there. And if people don't, I don't know if I want to take this leap, but if you don't get comfortable with it now, or at least kind of understand the 50,000 foot view of what it is, you could kind of get left behind. I mean, it's a major thing coming. All right, I know you got to wrap up. So I love to ask, and you can't say AWS for this one. And I'm going to remove the metaverse option for you as well. So what is your favorite piece of technology that's, of course, not AWS? Because I know that's number one. And then anything over the metaverse we'll say that's number two. So anything besides those two, what's your favorite piece of technology?
Okay. Look, I think for me, I always try to, what matters most, right? So, family first, right? So I think about recently, what have I done with technology with my family? My wife and I were thinking about Christmas morning, and we said, we've had the same video camera for, feels like 8 years, right? So now if you watch a video on this video camera, it looks like you're watching something from the 90s.
Yeah, so cell phones surpassed it.
So completely surpassed. So that's so when I say, so I'm like, all right, do we go buy a new video camera? And we're like, why not just upgrade from the iPhone 8 that I had to like the 13? And I know, Dennis said his least favorite piece of technology was Apple, right? But I'll tell you, my favorite piece of technology, I think right now, is the iPhone 13, because I'm going to be able to capture Christmas morning in 1080p, 60 frames a second. Right?
That's amazing.
Right. That's amazing. I'm pretty excited about that.
I love that answer.
But look, just to wrap up and kind of bookend some of this metaverse stuff, I think, there's a level of, gravity of experience, I think, that comes with whenever you've been doing something for a long time, right? Like I've been doing, physical real estate investing for, 8+ years. And I think as you begin to do that or do something like that for a long time, the gravity of experience brings people to you who are interested in it, right? So you start coaching and guiding and some other folks. And I think getting into this now, this metaversal real estate thing is very similar to that, right? I think getting in now, you'll be able to help guide other people who want to create certain investments or put some investments in place that are going to help their family for the long term. So we're doing that now. And I'll give a shameless plug. I recently purchased the domain metaverserealestatehelp.com.
Okay.
And I threw up a really quick landing page. But if anyone's interested and they want to learn more, they want to go on this journey with me and others as I bring into this, love to have you on that newsletter and share more with you.
I'm going to sign up. I'm both a traditional real estate investor and agent myself, so this is like right up my alley, and I'm going to totally sign up. So I would love to continue this conversation with you.
Cool.
All right, Metaverse Real Estate. Hey, this is great talking.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we tag it in our post to make sure we direct everyone there. But count me in.
Cool. Well,
all
great.
Right.
Great talking with you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of your day.
Absolutely, you too.